Right now, in this exact moment, your brain is lying to you. And the terrifying part? You have absolutely no idea it's happening. Your brain processes 11 million bits of information every single second. But here is what scientists don't teach you in school. It shortcuts almost all of it. It fills in the gaps. It invents memories. It convinces you that what you see is reality, when in fact, you are living inside a beautifully constructed illusion your brain built for you. Today, I'm going to show you the 7 cognitive biases your brain uses to deceive you every single day, and how they have already quietly shaped every major decision you have ever made. Psychologists have documented over 200 cognitive biases, but we are focusing on the 7 that silently control your life the most, the ones that are operating on you right now as you watch this. 7 lies, 7 traps, 7 ways your brain controls you without your permission. Stay until the end, because the last one will genuinely disturb you. Bias number 1, confirmation bias. Your brain does not seek truth, it seeks agreement. And right now, without you realizing it, your mind is actively filtering out any information that contradicts what you already believe. Here is how it works. When you encounter information that agrees with your existing beliefs, your brain releases a small hit of dopamine, the same chemical as a reward. Disagreement, by contrast, triggers a mild stress response. This is not a character flaw, it is a survival mechanism. For our ancestors, being part of the tribe meant staying alive. Disagreement meant social rejection, which meant death. Your brain is still running that ancient code. Think about your social media feed right now. Who do you follow? Chances are almost everyone shares your politics, your values, your lifestyle. That is not coincidence. That is confirmation bias at industrial scale, and the algorithm knows it. A landmark Stanford study found that people spend 36% more time reading content that confirms their worldview than content that challenges it. You are not reading information, you are reading a reflection of yourself. This is how flat earthers, conspiracy theorists, and extremists of all kinds maintain their beliefs, not through stupidity, but through the perfectly normal human tendency to only trust sources that agree with what they already think. And this is why you and your partner remember the same argument completely differently. You both walked into it with confirmation bias already active, and you both walked out absolutely certain that you were the reasonable one. Here is the uncomfortable question. Which belief of yours have you never genuinely challenged? Which opinion do you hold not because you researched it, but because everyone around you holds it too? Think about it. Really think. The antidote is called steel manning, the opposite of straw manning. Instead of finding the weakest version of an opposing argument to dismiss, find the strongest version and genuinely engage with it. It will be uncomfortable. It is also the only path to actual truth. Every day, actively seek out one piece of content that challenges your current beliefs, not to change your mind, just to test it. That single habit separates a thinking person from a programmed one. Bias number 2, the Dunning-Kruger effect. The less you know about a subject, the more confident you feel about it. And the more you truly know, the more uncertain you become. It is one of the cruelest tricks the human mind plays. After 1 week of learning something new, you feel like an expert. After 6 months, you realize how little you know. After 10 years, you understand you have only scratched the surface. That humiliation at month 6, that is the moment real wisdom begins. This is the actual documented curve of human confidence mapped against knowledge. Notice the terrifying peak right at the beginning. That is where most people live, and most of them have no idea they're sitting on Mount Stupid. You've seen this person. They watched one YouTube video and are now correcting epidemiologists in the comments. They read a Wikipedia summary and are now an expert economist. That is not arrogance. That is Dunning-Kruger running exactly as designed. In the original 1999 Kruger and Dunning study, students who scored in the bottom 12% of a logic test estimated they had performed better than 68% of their peers. The experts scored near the top, but assumed they had done average. Incompetence is invisible to itself. The beginner driver is the most dangerous driver on the road, not because they lack skill, but because they don't yet know what they don't know. The expert driver is anxious because they have seen exactly what can go wrong. Knowledge breeds appropriate caution. Every workplace has one. The newest hire who walks in and immediately knows exactly how everything should be done differently. And every experienced person in that room is thinking the same thing. We all said that in year 1. Some of us are still embarrassed about it. The valley of despair is actually the most important stage of learning. It's where most people quit. It's where the beginner's arrogance is finally replaced by genuine humility, and it is the only path to real expertise. Most people never make it through.
The antidote to Dunning-Kruger is the 3 most powerful words in any expert's vocabulary. I don't know. Practice saying them out loud. Seek mentors who make you feel like a beginner again. The discomfort of not knowing is exactly where growth lives. Every expert was once an overconfident beginner. Every master passed through the valley where they almost quit. The Dunning-Kruger curve is not a trap to avoid. It is a map. Know which stage you are in and keep moving.
Bias number 3, the anchoring effect. The very first number you see, regardless of whether it is relevant or accurate, will control every financial and value judgment you make afterward, and you will never know it is happening. An $800 handbag feels like a steal, but only because your brain was anchored to $2,000 first. Remove that anchor entirely and present it as just an $800 bag with no comparison, and suddenly it is expensive. Nothing changed except the number you saw first. This is why experienced negotiators always speak first. The first number in any negotiation becomes the anchor that every subsequent offer is measured against. A skilled negotiator sets the anchor extremely high, then lets the other side feel like they are winning by coming down from it. Every upscale restaurant menu has a decoy item, the absurdly expensive dish at the top right, where your eyes land first. It is not there to be ordered, it is there as an anchor. Everything else on the menu now feels reasonable by comparison. You were designed to order the $38 pasta. Real estate agents are trained in anchoring. They intentionally show buyers an overpriced bad house first, then the house they actually want to sell. The second house feels like a bargain. The first house was never meant to sell. It was meant to set your anchor. Anchoring does not only apply to money. Your first impression of a person becomes the anchor through which every subsequent thing they do is filtered. A confident entrance can make an average answer sound brilliant. A weak entrance makes a brilliant answer sound average. In a famous Caltech study, researchers gave test subjects the exact same wine in glasses labeled $8 and $85. Not only did participants rate the $85 version as significantly better tasting, their brain scans showed more pleasure center activity when they believed they were drinking the expensive wine. The price literally changed how pleasure was experienced. Even nonprofits use anchoring. When a donation page shows $250 as the first suggested amount, donations cluster around $50 to $100, which feels modest by comparison. Remove the $250 anchor, and the same donors give $20 to $30. The anchor tripled their generosity without asking. To defeat anchoring, ask one question before any purchase or negotiation. What is this actually worth to me, independent of any number I have already seen? Write that number down before you see the asking price. That is your real anchor, the only honest one. Every price you have ever paid, every salary you have ever accepted, every donation you have ever made, all of them were shaped by a number you saw first. Now you know. Set your own anchors before anyone else can set them for you. Bias number 4, the sunk cost fallacy. Your brain is holding you hostage to the past. Every bad decision you refuse to walk away from, every terrible investment you keep funding, every dead relationship you stay in, this bias is the reason why. You have sat through a movie you hated for 2 hours because you already paid for the ticket. The money is gone. It is a sunk cost. Staying does not get it back, but your brain cannot accept this. It insists on honoring a payment that has already left your account. This is the sunk cost fallacy at its most destructive. The startup founder who pours another $200,000 into a business that the market has clearly rejected, not because the data supports it, but because they have already invested 4 years and cannot psychologically accept that it is over. How many people stay in relationships years past their expiration date because of the time they have already invested? The years do not get refunded if you leave, but they compound if you stay. The sunk cost fallacy does not just waste money, it consumes the years of your one life. The sunk cost fallacy has killed nations. Military analysts have documented how the Vietnam War was prolonged by years specifically because of this bias. The logic being, we cannot stop now, too many have already died. That logic caused the deaths of tens of thousands more. The economic principle is simple. Sunk costs are irrelevant to future decisions. The money, time, and energy already spent are gone permanently, whether you continue or not. The only rational question is, given only what lies ahead, does continuing make sense? Almost never. I want you to genuinely answer this in your mind right now. What are you currently staying in only because of what you have already put into it? A career, a relationship, a city, a belief? Not because the future is bright, but because the past was costly. That is the sunk cost fallacy living in your real life. Professional poker players learn early that chips in the pot are dead money. The moment they go in, they belong to the pot, not to you. Every additional chip you put in must be justified by your current hand and future odds, not by the chips you already lost. This is the discipline most people never develop. The antidote is one question. If I were starting from zero today, with no prior investment, no history, no sunk costs, what would I freely choose? If the answer is not what you currently have, you now know what to do. The past cannot be unlost. The future still can be chosen. Every day you spend in a bad situation because of time you have already lost is another day added to the cost. The question is never, what have I already spent? It is always, what do I want to spend next?
Bias number 5, the availability heuristic. Your brain judges how likely something is to happen based on how easily an example comes to mind, not based on actual statistics. And what comes to mind most easily is whatever has been on the news most recently. You are statistically 95 times more likely to die in a car than in a plane, but millions of people refuse to fly while driving every day without a second thought. Why? Plane crashes are spectacular, televised, and impossible to forget. Car deaths happen quietly, one at a time, invisible. In 2001, US news networks ran 100 hours of shark attack coverage following a handful of incidents. That summer, the number of people who reported being afraid to swim in the ocean spiked dramatically. The same summer, hundreds died of drowning, unreported, unfeared, completely ignored. In virtually every developed country, violent crime rates have fallen dramatically over the past 30 years. Yet in polling, the majority of citizens believe crime is getting worse and has been getting worse for decades. The availability heuristic is manufacturing a world more frightening than reality. After 9/11, millions of Americans stopped flying and drove instead. A Cornell study estimated this killed an additional 1,595 people in road accidents over the following year, people who died trying to avoid a statistically far smaller risk. The availability heuristic made the safer choice feel terrifying. You vividly imagine winning the lottery because you have seen the winner's news coverage. You do not vividly imagine your own heart attack because nobody televises that. Your brain's risk assessment is not a statistical calculator, it is a highlight reel of the news. Fear drives engagement. Engagement drives revenue. Revenue drives more fear-based content. The media is not conspiring against you. It is simply giving the availability heuristic exactly what it demands. You click on what terrifies you. They produce what you click. The antidote to the availability heuristic is base rates. Before feeling fear, ask, what do the actual statistics say about this risk over time? Not what is on the news right now. What does the long-term data show? The answer is almost always less frightening than your brain insists. You would have to fly every day for 55,000 years before the statistics predict a fatal crash. You face a 1 in 101 lifetime chance of dying in a car. But the plane feels dangerous and the car feels safe because one of them has been on television. The world is statistically safer than it has ever been in human history, but it feels more dangerous than ever because we have more cameras than ever before. The news is not a window to the world. It is a highlight reel of the worst 0.01%. Remember that. Bias number 6, the halo effect. When your brain perceives one positive trait in a person, particularly physical attractiveness, it automatically assumes they also possess every other desirable quality: intelligence, honesty, competence, kindness, without a single piece of evidence. Studies show that attractive people are hired at higher rates, promoted faster, convicted less often in jury trials, and given longer prison sentences when they are convicted because the jury feels more betrayed. Your first impression of a face is shaping outcomes that should be purely rational. Economists at the University of Texas calculated that physically attractive people earn on average 12% more over a lifetime than their peers with identical qualifications. In a 40-year career, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars paid by employers who would swear their hiring was completely merit-based. In documented courtroom studies, attractive defendants are convicted less often for the same crimes, and when they are convicted, they receive sentences 22% shorter on average. A bias that should have no legal relevance is literally determining freedom. The halo reaches into our justice system. The halo effect also works in reverse, what psychologists call the horns effect. One negative trait, particularly an unattractive appearance or a single social misstep, causes your brain to assume incompetence, dishonesty, and a dozen other negative qualities. The same brain, the same bias in opposite directions. Researchers showed voters photos of political candidates they had never seen, no policy information, no names, no party affiliations, and asked them to rate the candidates on competence based only on appearance. They predicted actual election outcomes with 70% accuracy. We are choosing our leaders with our eyes. The antidote is structured evaluation. Before forming any impression of a person, define what you are actually measuring. Write down the specific criteria. Evaluate each criterion independently before forming a holistic judgment. The halo cannot distort what you have already decided to measure objectively. The most dangerous version of the halo effect is the one you have built around yourself. The skills that made you successful in one domain are not automatically transferable to another. Check your halo at the door of every new challenge. Start as a beginner.
Bias number 7, the one I promised would disturb you. This one does not just distort perception or waste money. Normalcy bias has killed thousands of people in the act of refusing to believe that the danger in front of them was real. Normalcy bias is your brain's default response to disaster. Deny it, minimize it. Convince yourself that what you are seeing cannot actually be happening because nothing this serious has happened before. Your brain chooses the comfort of familiar normal over the terrifying truth of real danger. On the Titanic, after the iceberg strike, passengers were offered a place in lifeboats, and many refused, choosing instead to return to their warm cabins and card games. The ship had never sunk before, therefore it would not sink now. That is normalcy bias executing its final fatal program. Research on 9/11 survivor accounts found that the average time between when workers heard or felt the impact and when they began to evacuate was 6 minutes. 6 minutes of finishing emails, collecting belongings, and waiting for confirmation that something serious was actually happening. Normalcy bias nearly cost many of them their lives. Here is why your brain does this. processing a genuine threat is metabolically expensive and emotionally overwhelming. Normalcy bias is your brain's efficient shortcut. Reframe it as not a threat and resume normal processing. It evolved as a way to prevent panic, but in genuine emergencies, it kills. Normalcy bias is not a historical artifact. You are using it right now. In the health symptom you have been meaning to check for 6 months. In the financial trajectory that is clearly unsustainable. In the relationship dynamic that has been slowly, quietly worsening for 2 years. The alarm is sounding. The question is whether you are still finishing your email. The antidote is called the pre-mortem. Before any major decision, project, or commitment, ask, assume this has gone completely wrong. What happened? Write the specific failure scenarios down. Normalcy bias cannot survive direct confrontation. The act of imagining failure in advance dismantles it. When something feels slightly wrong, your body, your finances, your relationship, your company, and your brain immediately begins generating reasons why it is probably fine. That is normalcy bias speaking. Listen to the alarm. The fact that it has never happened before is not proof that it will not. Here is the truth that nobody tells you. You cannot eliminate these biases. They are hardwired into the architecture of the human brain, the price of the cognitive shortcuts that also make us capable of remarkable intelligence. But the moment you can name them, they lose most of their power. Awareness is the only antidote that matters, not perfection, not the elimination of bias. Just this, the moment between the bias triggering and your response. The moment where you ask, wait, is my brain lying to me right now? That pause, that question, that is the whole game. Tell me in the comments right now, which of these 7 biases do you recognize most in your own life? Comment the number 1 through 7. And if you saw yourself in more than 4 of these, I made a direct follow-up video specifically for you. It is linked in the description below. Your brain will always lie to you. But now, for the first time, you know exactly how it does it. You know the names of the 7 liars. And knowing their names changes everything. See you in the next one.